talking about the subject that we've been on all day. Things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is that I had in the past is gone.
Mm-hmm.
While I was in prison, the home I raised the kids in, Jamie, Charles, and Tammy Sue,
Mm-hmm.
it burned to the ground while I was in prison. I watched it burn down from the prison. You know, it's one of those things you kind of say, well, God, is this a joke, or is this what is this? This is, I'm sitting in a prison watching. We didn't own the home anymore. The preachers took it away from me, took everything away from me.
This is stuff, though, that people who have known you need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Because they go through stuff. They've got kids that are going to go through this. They've been betrayed by people. They don't know what to do.
Right.
And I'm not trying to push you to do something, but I think there's things that you've got in you. That
You know, when you hit,
people
how
need-
many here have hit what you would say really hit bottom at some point in your life? Anybody in here? Raise your hand. Wave at me so I can see you. You're my friends.
Yeah.
They say misery loves company. But, and you know what happens when you hit bottom? Somebody hits your bottom or hits your head, whatever. You know what I mean? And I was in those prisons, and there was always, and I could do a whole show on this, always one of the guards that hated me.
Ah, the guards.
A guard in the prison I was in the law, and would treat me, trying to break me. And they'd make me do things like cleaning awful, filthy things, you know, because I was a cleaning person, you know. I cleaned the toilets the whole time I was in prison.
Mm.
But you were saying, God, where are you? And this guard would say, Bakker, what are you doing? You can't stand there. One day I was standing on a piece of carpet. He says, you can't stand there. Basically, you're not good enough. You know, and that's nothing compared. But God never left me. There was fearful times, and I'm serious. I was in Al Capone's cell, and they told me that I would, and this was one of the worst prisons in America, and they said, we guarantee you, you'll not be with murderers, you know, because even my lawyer didn't want me to be in a dangerous prison, because you die in prison.
Yeah.
And so I'm delivered to that, looked like Dracula's castle. And I went to that cell, and I was in a top bunk with, I think it was a 4-man cell. And I'm laying on that bunk, just arriving after a long diesel trip, they call them. And here they are, discussing who they killed, discussing the murder. Well, I'm laying there, and I'm supposed to be. And so in that prison, I decided not, the place is most dangerous is the chow hall, and the lineups and things like that. So I didn't eat at all as far as going to that. I didn't go to that dining hall, whatever you call it in prison.
Man.
And I almost died. And they couldn't find me. My lawyers couldn't find me. Nobody could find me because when you're traveling, and I was traveling for several months probably, and they wouldn't let anybody know where I was. So my lawyers finally demanded, where is Jimm Bakker? We got to find him. We got to know where he is. And so they called me to a doctor then. And the doctor said that I was on the verge of dying. That I was dehydrated. But that moment, there was a prison camp next to the big house.
Right.
They immediately assigned me to the camp, which I was camp eligible. I was out eligible, what they call an out person. That was one of the moments of my life. And I hadn't seen outside as far as distance. And I wanted to see forever. I said, God, let me see. Because I always saw razor wire and walls.
Yeah.
I was at Route 66, went through that prison area. And as I go into that camp, I looked out and I saw forever. I could see forever. No walls. Camps don't have walls. They you're an outpatient. But my life was threatened in that particular camp, that they were going to kill me. And they just do it for fame and fortune, because you're famous. They want to kill you just for fun. And they said, Jim, we want to put you back in the big house to keep you safe. And I said, no, I don't want to go back. And the cellmates around me, there was Christian guys even in that camp, prison camp.
Oh.
And they said, we'll take care of them. We're going to watch over them.
Oh, wow.
So I saw the good, bad, and the ugly.
Mm.
And my heart goes out to prisoners.
Yeah.
I wish to God somehow I could really bless prisoners. Some of them are guilty and some are not, but in Christ they all can be set free.
Mm-mm.
And I had a mafia kingpin in one of the prisons I was in, and the grandpa, old
Godfather. Yeah.
godfather. And I wasn't eating in that prison because I just didn't feel like eating anymore. It was in the early years of my prison time, and I was just, and that godfather cooked me spaghetti every day.
What?
And brought it to my cell, in my cell block. And he was a kingpin, so he was allowed to do things. I don't understand it all, but
Right.
just go along with the system, you know. And I'm sure he's dead by now because he was very old. But he'd say, Jimmy, call me Jimmy instead of Jim. Jimmy, you gotta eat. You gotta eat, Jimmy.
Oh.
And bring me a bowl of spaghetti, good spaghetti, by the way.
That's the ravens feeding you. That's
He
the
fed me
ravens feeding you.
Yeah.
when I didn't want to live anymore.
Wow. But you know, the whole time that you were there, and me being a minister and knowing, you know, kind of the inside of what actually happened, I would hear people say, that is the biggest injustice in American history. That is the biggest injustice. That is people that knew would say, this is totally politically motivated. This is some judge who has a vendetta. I heard it everywhere.
Yeah.
But then I just knew somehow in my spirit when I heard the news broke, I didn't know who it was at that time or wasn't paying attention to the lawyer, that you were coming out. I was just laughing at the devil. I said, see, watch this.
Yeah.
Because God had a plan from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I go back to Joseph, and when I said that a moment ago, how he got accused of something he wasn't even guilty of.
Right.
And they've told you, they all told you, this was hack job. This was not, there was nothing here. And how he stayed 13 years because he came out 7 years before a famine hit.
That's right.
And God said, I got to have a man to teach people how to prepare.
Yes.
This may be I don't know the future. Jim, it is possible that this is the reason why you're out and you're right here right now. Is
Wow.
God knows, just like Joseph, they're not paying attention, but keep saying it. Not say they. There are people, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of people.
Yeah.
But secular world, whatever.
Yeah.
And God is got to have people to tell people you need to get yourself ready. Jeremiah did it 40 years before it happened. Jesus was it 36 years, 37 years before it happened. But you keep with your voice, you keep doing what the Lord tells you to do, because look, this thing comes down the pike the way it could. There are going to be a whole lot of people thanking God that Jimm Bakker told them something.
That's right. You're right.
And
Well, I'm
then
going
you
to tell
talked
you.
about
Here's what I
We
want
had
to
the
do.
best
You come to
interview.
Cleveland, and I'm going to set up a table. I've got a really beautiful news table, and we're gonna start the service. I got great worship. We'll have 15 minutes of worship. We'll receive our tithe and offer of the church, and we will sit down, and you can use it on your program if you want. But I will.
Me too in the parole time. Another great lawyer, a professor, Jim Albert,
Yes. James Albert.
came to my prison cell. Went back. He read all of my trial. Read it stacks this high. And he also said, Jim, you didn't get a fair trial. This is wrong. He spent probably 6 years of his life on my case.
With his
Never
students.
paid a penny.
With his students. They all researched it. And
And so when I went in to be resentenced, because my sentence was thrown out by the
Yeah.
judge, he asked his school classes that he taught. He's law professor of the year, 5 years in a row.
Ooh.
And they said to him, or he said to his class, he said, how many would work on Jimm Bakker's? And he didn't think half of them would do it even, just because they're that way. And he said, especially the girls. He said, the girls are the toughest lawyers. He trains them,
That's the kid,
So they're
yes.
ready. And every girl and every boy in all his classes signed up. They looked up every case similar to mine. Usually on case studies, that's how they do your sentencing.
Darn.
They looked up the case histories of every single case anywhere near mine. And so when I went to be resentenced, they didn't have one case. They had all of the cases on my case. And so I was eligible to be out that day when it was up for retirement. But Washington, the deep state, they would not let me go because they figured some way they could keep me another 2 years after that. And that was a heartbreak too, because I wanted out. I really did want out. But those last 2 years, I finished Revelation in the last 2 years. Basically, the last 2 years were the most important years in my study of Revelation. And you don't just study if you don't have time alone.
That's
you know.
true. That's
So it's
true.
very important.
It's amazing.
Well, I know you have to.
They're like giving us signs. Perry's
Yeah,
got to go. Your
yeah.
plane's leaving.
Yeah.
But you know what? Before you
Wow.
leave, I'm going to give this out of this is my notes out of my book. I keep this on. Make sure I get one of these back. You're going to enjoy this. This is from the prison cell of Jimm Bakker. And